still on the test server. My boots, so definitely still on the test servers. So we got 5 hours. This one's what? Okay, I don't know. Sorry about that, bro. Not under hurry on this. I'm gonna do this. All right. We'll check this out here.
From the patrol standpoint and within the Detective Bureau sign out in Tamarack. And that's why we're here. We're here to give you some clarity. For many of you in the room, you've been with me in this room for the last 6 years. And if you think back to 2019, one of the things I told this community was that when I know, they will know. And that this agency will remain a transparent and accountable organization, not just when we're doing things great, but when we come up short. And I'm going to start with that. It is clear, based on the preliminary information I've been able to acquire so far from our investigators within the Office of Inspector General and Internal Affairs, we fell short on this one. We fell short in a response in terms of how some of the patrol personnel had documented certain facts related to calls going back to December. It's clear that some of the investigative practices conducted by detectives was also a shortfall. And so as we're continuing to gather more facts on this, I'm going to end up back in front of this camera. Make no mistake about it. Because I want to make sure this community continues to trust us and know that when we get this stuff wrong, people are going to be held accountable, and I'm going to step up and own every bit of it. So that's where we are at with this. Currently, there are 7 members, 7 total, that had some involvement with this investigation that are out on suspension right now on administrative leave until we can come to a final course of action in terms of this investigation. 1 is a lieutenant, 2 sergeants, and 4 deputies. Again, that's 1 lieutenant, 2 sergeants, 4 deputies. If you need names and things of that nature, you can get that from Vita after the conference. This is as short as I can get, and I'll roll over, and I think it's probably going to be more appropriate to take a few questions if I can. Keep in mind, I cannot disclose or start talking about the homicide investigation, and there's minimum things that I can present in terms of the internal affairs. We'll start here.
Sheriff, we have been told that Mary Jingle sought help from the Tamarack unit, and that little was offered. How do you respond to that?
I think that is an accurate assessment and that we could have done more from what I've been able to analyze. I'll start with some of the first things that I've been able to witness and look at. From the original call for service that occurred back in October, because we're going way back, folks. We're not just looking at isolated incidents. We have a robust list of all the calls for services that occurred at that site location, either coming from the husband or coming from the wife or any other member that had any concern. What I witnessed in October, the first call that came out was related to a tracker. I saw some of your stories, you're accurate in that assessment. It's clear that we probably could have done more in that element, and that's what we're looking at in terms of what the deputies' responsibilities were at that time. These aren't shortcomings of policies, procedures, training, or equipment. From my assessment, this is really just a shortcoming of performance, whether it be complacency, not taking a greater interest, and not doing their due diligence to make sure that they're documenting everything in an accurate manner, so that when it does arrive in the investigator's hand, they have a comprehensive report that will allow them to make better judgment and decisions. That's one start. The second aspect is the call in December that we had, where a deputy went out to the scene and spent 35 minutes and 34 seconds, because I watched every bit of it on a body-worn camera, assessing and talking to the victim, talking to Mary, gathering information from her. And it was very robust in terms of the threat spectrum that exists, the totality of times that she had made related to, I fear that he's going to kill me, etc. And at that time, based on the evidence and things that were presented, there was enough there where we could have potentially pursued a probable cause affidavit so we can arrest him and take him off the street. And that didn't happen. We know that. The other elements that I'll be able to talk a little bit about is when this case finally made it to the assigned detective in the district. We're looking at that. There has been a multitude of shortcomings from my perspective that I know from being an investigator, having worked cases where things could have been done a lot better and they were not done. And so that's why I prompted and called for this internal affairs investigation, because on the surface, just seeing some of the things we found in the first couple hours, remember 24 hours, we were already looking into this. It was clear that, no, we're going to have to address this one. We have to come to the public and let them know what the hell happened.
Sergeant Travis,
right here.
The patrol issue, Sergeant Travis Allen, who witnessed the suspect and the kidnapped child at that point, walking right past the patrol car, 4 houses from the scene of the crime, knowing shots had been fired, knowing people were calling all over. Is that not an active shooter situation when you know the shooting is occurring and you see a stranger, and he even says, it's unknown if it's related, I just find it kind of odd to walk around this time of the morning and she has no shoes on. Kind of odd, and he lets her go?
Well, I can tell you this. You mentioned Sergeant Allen, correct? He is also one that's currently suspended, and we're examining the totality of it. So, for going back to the clarity, you asked one question that had 2 parts. The first part, no, it's not an active shooter incident. The way we classify active shooter incidents across this country under Department of Homeland Security protocols and the FBI, that would not qualify. The individual conducted a homicide, and then he stalked additional victims and killed them independently. But there wasn't an open-air environment where he's actively shooting at random people that has no participating role in that particular criminal pattern that he took. Does that make sense? Here.
But what about his behavior? What about his performance? Where the guy's walking right still, should he be a person?
The entire performance protocols is what we're looking at, and I don't want to jump ahead of this. Let me get to this real quick. There will be people that will lose their job over this. And I'm focused on making sure that they don't win a damn arbitration, because that happens too repeatedly in this profession, where individuals out in other states, after I fire someone, determine that they want this person back in our county and in this community. I've dealt with that numerous times throughout my career here as a sheriff. And so I don't want to put out any information about the standing of this investigation, because when I have to make the final decision that members are going to be terminated, I don't want them back here.
Sheriff, is it safe to say that these 7 suspensions don't necessarily have to do with this specific incident that happened over this weekend, but as you mentioned, dating back all the way to October?
Roy, you bring thank you. That's a very good point, okay? I hate that we have to talk about the shortcomings, because our tactical team out there, our SWAT team, did a remarkable job on the hostage rescue and saving that young kid's life and making sure it didn't escalate to a potential active shooter in any other environment. But we can't highlight that when I know there's other shortcomings. And because of those other shortcomings, it forced me to go far back as we can from the first few calls of service that came in. And as we're analyzing every single one of those calls, going over a year ago, we're starting to see things that where we probably should have done better.
Sheriff, do you know where his gun's taken away? According to one of the documents, they were given to BSO. Do you know if the guns remained in BSO custody, or were his weapons ever returned?
Let me backtrack a little bit. Early on, there was a call for service in which we were able to come out there and seize all the weapons for an injunction violation. Then there was a second call for service that came out after the injunction was basically null and void because of the victim had elected to go in that path. And then those guns were returnable in the sense that he had the right to receive them. And then this rolls into how many more other calls for services did he receive since the second time since he received his weapons back, and whether or not there was enough evidence there for us to take him a second time and a third time, or retain those weapons to keep them out of his hands.
The order said they should be turned in. The second injunction assault December 30th and issued and served to him on January 8th said the weapons must be turned over to the sheriffs as well as the CWP.
Again, we did not collect any of those weapons that I have in front of me right now in terms of the second injunction. But this is within this investigation. I want to know, why didn't we do it? Who was the detective assigned? Did they file the proper paperwork with the courts? These are all the processes that we're looking at. And like I said, if we have to do a round 2 or 3 of this, we most certainly are going to do it and tell the community what they need to hear. Where are we at? Let me go here, here, and then there.
We received one document also where there was just sort of as an aside, it said, father appeared to know the officers. Is that part of your investigation? And then past that?
I can tell you what I've witnessed so far. This isn't a matter of a relationship element or someone, a deputy, showing favor. This is just a matter of what I've seen of piss poor performance, complacency, and people not doing their due diligence to ensure that all the checks and balances that we put in place in this agency over the last 6 years, we have stopped several active shooter incidents. We've investigated over 5,000 cases. We divert over 2,500 individuals towards mental health care. We created a threat management division that works 24/7, 365. So there's enough resources in this agency to support every single law enforcement officer across this entire county beyond BSO, because we have supported and investigated hundreds of cases in Fort Lauderdale, Coconut Creek, and Margate. And so it's very frustrating. It's very frustrating for me to have to stand here and witness this and know that we're an organization who has had our trials, from one active shooter event to the airport to Stoneman Douglas to one tragedy after the next. And this administration, we put forth everything necessary to be successful. And it's inexcusable that individuals fail to perform their job. And it's not an excuse within anything from administration to policies to protocols to training. It's just bullshit work by other officers.
Sheriff, what work could she have done? What would you say to other women who are in fear and wonder, if she couldn't get the help she needed, what can I do?
Look, I don't want the public to lose faith that we can't do this when we're handling thousands and thousands of calls per service. We were over 700,000 calls per services every year just in our law enforcement division. That is an indicator that we're going to be successful handling our cases. So to the public, to the community, to those mothers and women out there who think that we're going to drop the ball and this is a consistent pattern, know this. When we rectify this situation, I'm going to send the fear of God amongst this entire agency to make damn sure we don't do this again. Because this death is on my watch. It's on my watch. I'm the sheriff of this county. I'm responsible. 2 times this community voted me in this office because of the way I perform, because I hold people accountable. I've terminated over 75 employees since I've been here, investigated the whole agency under the PPP scandal. I'm not shy away from holding us accountable. I'm not shy about taking an aggressive tone when we fail. There's 2 million people in this county that are counting on us every day to do our job. I fight for the funding, I fight for the equipment, and they have to fight for this community and perform. But they're not going to survive here. Terrell.
So, just for the record, how many administrative leaves for these deputies are tied to this past weekend, for one? And then 2, was there a delay in finding any of the victims in the morning that this happened? And then 3, any of the shortcomings tied to this Amber Alert, could this Amber Alert have been avoided if these shortcomings?
No, I'll start and work backwards. So the Amber Alert, I didn't see any issues there. If something comes up over the next couple of days as our investigators are analyzing this more, we'll come back and talk about it. But on the surface, that was not an issue. As far as the shortcomings, all 7, this is related to the most recent call for service going back from going back from October, December 29th, and of course our response going out there on the tragic day. You had one other in the middle and I lost it. What was your second one?
Was there a delay in finding any of the victims on the morning that this happened?
I think there was somewhat of a delay in terms of finding them, but the discovery aspect, if you look at it, she was fearful, she was running for her life, she was going from one spot location to the next. So that takes time to be able to discover exactly where is the incident location, where is the final resting place, unfortunately, for the victim. That, I'm not going to micromanage that, right? There's some things that just take time. That's just the nature of doing business. But what I won't shy away from is the shortcomings in terms of investigative practices at the officer level and the detective level. And by the way, this investigation will include every single administrator from the captain, the district commander, all the way down. No one is going to get a pass on this. And if anyone falls short, They were not survivors.
Sheriff, you gave a
Here.
message to the community and to women. Do you have a message for the families?
Absolutely. Absolutely. This is a devastating time for them. And it's hard to stand here non-emotional, and forgive the profanity that I dropped momentarily. It's very difficult because I hold these people close to my heart when they die.
Stuck with nasal congestion? We've all been there. Afrin No Drip is here to help.
Wow.
Get ridiculously powerful nasal congestion relief in seconds. Stays right where it's sprayed. Whether it's allergies or a cold.
5 words you pronounce wrong 2 years before your brain starts shutting down. Dementia is now becoming.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for being with me today. I've got 2 items that we're going to go over. And the first one that I want to talk about is a murder. A cold-blooded murder of a 39-year-old mother by her 17-year-old son. And it's not just a singular murder, but as we got into the investigation, we found that about a year and a half, maybe a year and 8 months, 9 months earlier, he murdered his father in Oklahoma. So let me tell you about this. It all started on September the 8th, which was this last Sunday, when we got a 911 call from Colin Griffith, who's 17 years of age. And here's what he said. He said he and his mother had a very long fight, and she fell on a knife and killed herself. And she's bleeding from the neck. He didn't say she killed herself, he said he's bleeding from the neck. So our 911 operators appropriately were giving them instructions on how to do life-saving techniques. When the deputies arrived, he met the deputies outside, and he was calm, cool, collected, not upset, and he had blood on him. What we found inside was this knife. This knife is 12 inches long, and of the 12 inches, 8 inches of that is the blade. So he's saying that his mother fell on this knife. We started our investigation at that point. The next morning, at the medical examiner's office and the autopsy, the medical examiner said it is not reasonable or plausible that she died the way that he said she did. Just didn't happen. There were witnesses outside the mobile home that actually saw Colin drag his mother into the house by the hair on her head. Colin is about 6 foot and 160 pounds. So an investigation started. This residence was at 77 Hewlett Drive, which is Auburndale, and it's called the Hamptons. It's a 55 and over community. And where it occurred was at Colin's grandmother's house. Colin's grandmother at the time was not there. She has another home in the Keys, and that's where she was. But let me go through some details, because as we start to peel back the layer of this onion, we find out that this is not just a singular event with Colin stabbing his mother in the neck and ultimately killing her. Here's what we found, and follow me as I read a timeline to you. On February 14th, 2023, on Valentine's Day, in Lincoln County, Nebraska. Lincoln County, Oklahoma.
This is 5 months.
There's a Lincoln County, Nebraska too. In Lincoln County, Oklahoma, Colin said that his dad pulled a knife on him. And he shot and killed his dad. That's right. His father was named Charles. He shot him once in the chest and once in the head, and he claimed self-defense. The Lincoln County Sheriff's Office and the Oklahoma State Bureau of Investigations charged Colin with murder in the first degree. They dropped the charges less than a month later. They said they could not disprove Colin's assertion of self-defense. So he was released. Well, when he was released, in March of 23, just barely a month after the original murder of his father, he came to Charlotte County, Florida, to live with his mother. And when he came to live with his mother, Catherine Griffith, who was 39, you would think things would be better. He would be really, really lucky that, hey, this was a self-defense and I'm here with mom. But 6 months later, guess what happened?
Kill his mom.
He's Baker acted. So it's September, and as he's getting out of the original Baker Act, he makes a statement that, well, I'll kill myself or I'll kill my mother by shooting or stabbing her. Charlotte County re-Baker acts him the same exact day. They keep him 3 more days. Now we're 2 months later. This is November 2023. Colin then is arrested for domestic violence on his mother. And the reason he battered his mother is because she was disciplining him and took his video game privileges away. So he beat up his mother. He pushed her to the ground and he stomped on her. The grandmother was there and witnessed this. Colin said it was self-defense. She made me do it. The grandmother said, no, no, no. Your mother did not provoke this at all. You simply were being disciplined and made to give up your game because of failure to carry out what you should, empty the garbage, wash the dishes, whatever they gave him to do. He claims self-defense when he stomped his mama, but he went to jail anyway. 3 months later, 12th of February in 2024, he has an argument with his mother, and he runs away from Charlotte County and comes back to Auburndale to his grandmother's house. Now, his grandmother's not there. And we got involved in this on the 12th of February.
That's
and
Polk County, Florida.
The mother said, and
By the way,
the grandmother said, hey, we don't feel safe with him around. So our deputies who found him up here as a missing persons reported in Charlotte County turned him over to DCF. 2 days later, on the 14th of February, the anniversary of him killing his dad a year ago, he's reunited with his mother by DCF. Colin made the statement that I don't want to go home. I'll use any force necessary to avoid it, to include killing my mother. So that's the second time he threatened to kill his mother. 2 weeks later, so they didn't make him go home on the 14th, but about 2 weeks later, in March 2024, they reunite Colin with his mother again. Everybody's calmed down. Now in May of 2024, Colin graduated from an alternative high school in Charlotte County and began attending community college. Now let's advance 4 months later to September the 6th. Colin has an argument about home chores, and he flees from his mother's house again and comes up to his grandmother's house. Grandmother's not there. She's in the Keys.
Building your online business? Go to Wix.com and set up your store on a single integrated platform. Add products, showcase them dynamically, and seamlessly track your inventory.
A cold-blooded murder of a 39-year-old mother by her 17-year-old son.
And if that wasn't shocking enough, a teenager accused of murdering his mom, the sheriff says he also killed his father.
When you look at this, you see a kid. When I look at him, I see a psychopath.
I have the chilling details from the murder of Kathy Griffith and the arrest of her son Colin Griffith for the crime. Welcome to Crime Fix. I'm Anjanette Levy. Just when you think you've heard it all, a case like Colin Griffith's comes up, and it's had my jaw on the floor for hours now. I've been going through the case, and it's absolutely unbelievable. Colin is a 17-year-old who was starting college early. His mom, Kathy Griffith, had posted photos on Instagram just last month, bragging about that major accomplishment. She said Colin had already earned 18 college credits. That's no small feat. Colin and his mom, they look really happy in the photos. She even bought him a new car for graduation. Kathy Griffith was very proud of her son. She bragged about him on Instagram all of the time. Just last month, she posted a photo of him and talked about how he was going to college. That was on August 20th. Then Sunday night, in Polk County, Florida, which is in between Tampa and Orlando, the sheriff says they got a 911 call from Colin. Here's Sheriff Grady Judd.
It all started on September the 8th, which was this last Sunday, when we got a 911 call from Colin Griffith, who's 17 years of age. And here's what he said. He said he and his mother had a very long fight, and she fell on a knife and killed herself. And she's bleeding from the neck. He didn't say she killed herself, said he's bleeding from the neck.
The death of Kathy Griffith is an absolute tragedy, but I'm able to tell you about it here on Crime Fix because of sponsors like Morgan & Morgan. Morgan & Morgan is a law firm that can help you if you are ever hurt in an accident. The firm has more than 1,000 lawyers working, and they're ready to fight for you and to stick up for your rights. Starting a claim is easy, and it can be done in 8 clicks or less, all just using your cell phone. And you only pay Morgan & Morgan if you win. You can't beat that. So give it a try. Log on to forthepeople.com/LC Crime Fix to start your claim in 8 clicks or less. The sheriff says the 911 call takers tried to help Colin. Of course they did, telling him what to do to try to help save his mom's life. Then deputies arrived.
He met the deputies outside, and he was calm, cool, collected, not upset, and he had blood on him. What we found inside was this knife. This knife is 12 inches long, and of the 12 inches, 8 inches of that is the blade. So he's saying that his mother fell on this knife.
That is a huge, huge knife. Of course, the medical examiner performed an autopsy on Kathy Griffith. This is what the sheriff said the ME found.
The next morning at the medical examiner's office and the autopsy, the medical examiner said it is not reasonable or plausible that she died the way that he said she did. Just didn't happen. There were witnesses outside the mobile home that actually saw Colin drag his mother into the house by the hair on her head. Colin is about 6 foot and 160 pounds.
Can you imagine? Neighbors told deputies they saw Colin dragging his mom into the house by her hair. That's terrifying. And the sheriff said that Colin told the 911 call takers that they had had a long fight. Sheriff Judd said that Colin Griffith had moved to Florida with his mom in March of last year. This was a month after Colin had been charged with murdering his father, Charles, in Lincoln County, Oklahoma.
Colin said that his dad pulled a knife on him, and he shot and killed him. That's right. His father was named Charles. He shot him once in the chest and once in the head, and he claimed self-defense. The Lincoln County Sheriff's Office and the Oklahoma State Bureau of Investigation charged Colin with murder in the first degree. They dropped the charges less than a month later. They said they could not disprove Colin's assertion of self-defense. So he was released.
So the charges were dropped against Colin in Oklahoma, and he moves to Florida to live with his mom in Charlotte County in March of last year. Charlotte County is about 2 hours south of Colin's grandma's house in Polk County.
You would think things would be better. He would be really, really lucky that, hey, this was a self-defense, I'm here with mom. But 6 months later,
Battleship foundered.
guess what happened? He's Baker acted. So it's September, and as he's getting out of the original Baker Act, he makes a statement that, well, I'll kill myself, or I'll kill my mother by shooting or stabbing her. Charlotte County re-Baker Acts him the same exact day, but keeps him 3 more days.
The Baker Act allows a person to be held for 72 hours for a mental health evaluation. Now fast forward to November of 2023.
Colin then is arrested for domestic violence on his mother. And the reason he battered his mother is because she was disciplining him and took his video game privileges away. So he beat up his mother. He pushed her to the ground and he stomped on her. The grandmother was there and witnessed this. Colin said it was self-defense. She made me do it. The grandmother said, no, no, no. Your mother did not provoke this at all. You simply were being disciplined and made to give up your game because of failure to carry out what you should, empty the garbage, wash the dishes, whatever they gave him to do. He claims self-defense when he stomped his mama, but he went to jail anyway.
So this is November of 2023, and Sheriff Judd says Colin went to jail for what he did to his mom then. Then in February of this year, Sheriff Judd said his office got a call about Colin Griffith.
He has an argument with his mother, and he runs away from Charlotte County and comes back to Auburndale.
We need to talk. It's not you. Well, it is you. I can't keep doing this anymore. You've always promised.
To his grandmother's house. Now, his grandmother's not there. And we got involved in this on the 12th of February. And the mother said, and the grandmother said, hey, we don't feel safe with him around. So our deputies who found him up here as a missing person reported in Charlotte County turned him over to DCF. 2 days later, on the 14th of February, the anniversary of him killing his dad a year ago, he's reunited with his mother by DCF. Colin made the statement that I don't want to go home. I'll use any force necessary to avoid it, to include killing my mother. That's the second time he threatened to kill his mother. 2 weeks later, so they didn't make him go home on the 14th, but about 2 weeks later, in March 2024, they reunite Colin with his mother again. Everybody's calmed down.
So that's March of this year. And in May, Colin graduated from high school. His mom was really proud of him, as most moms would be. She was posting photos on Instagram of him in his cap and gown. And as I mentioned earlier, she actually bought him a car as a gift. Colin even received letters from members of Congress congratulating him about graduating from high school. And photos on that Instagram showed that they spent the 4th of July holiday weekend in Washington, D.C., and even went on a tour of the White House. Then on September 6th, Sheriff Judd said Kathy Griffith and Colin had an argument, and he took off for his grandma's house in Polk County.
He flees from his mother's house again and comes up to his grandmother's house. Grandmother's not there. She's in the key.
Autopilot mode enabled.
So then mom lets the event calm down, and she tells her son, hey, you need to come home. And she asks him to come home and take his responsibility. Colin says, I'm not coming back home until September the 7th. So now we're to the fateful day on September 8th. Mom drives up here to Auburndale in Charlotte County. She arrives at 4 o'clock. At about 4:30, witnesses and neighbors see Colin and Mom arguing outside, and Colin grabs his mother by the hair and drags her into the house. Just about 2 hours later, that's when we receive a 911 call where Colin said, I've had a very, very long fight with Mom, and she fell on a knife and she's bleeding from the neck.
The sheriff says witnesses heard Kathy Griffith telling her son, let me go. Colin Griffith is charged with first-degree murder, kidnapping, and violation of a no-contact order. Sheriff Judd talked about what Colin Griffith said when deputies arrived at his grandmother's house following his 911 call.
Had he gone to live with his grandmother at the end of this and she crossed him, she would be. He's violent. He's dangerous. He showed zero remorse. Zero remorse when he was being interviewed. In fact, when we attempted the interview, he met the original deputy in the front yard. And he didn't say, Mom's in here, Mom's bleeding to death, Mom needs help. He looked the deputy in the eye and says, I know my rights, I want an attorney. Zero emotion about, hurry up, help Mom, she's bleeding, she's got a problem. He is a dangerous human being.
Sadly, a day before Kathy Griffith died, she posted on Instagram, that old familiar body ache, the snaps from the same little breaks in your soul. You know when it's time to go. Sometimes giving up is the strong thing. Now, of course, we don't know if that post had anything to do with her son, and we may never know. But this wasn't like her other posts, which were incredibly upbeat. Sheriff Judd summed up his thoughts on the case this way.
When you look at this, you see a kid. When I look at him, I see a psychopath. I see totally erratic behavior. To the point that he's already, at 17 years of age, shot and killed his father and got away with it, and stabbed his mother in the neck so hard that the knife went all the way through and was to the back of her neck, and she died there. He's being charged with first-degree murder, obviously, and we are asking the state attorney's office, it's their decision, but our state attorney's office is the greatest, to prosecute him as an adult.
And Sheriff Judd said he's actually been in touch with the sheriff's office in Oklahoma, telling them they may want to take a second look at the death of Colin's father. Dr. Daniel Bober is a forensic psychiatrist, and he really specializes in issues with kids. I am confounded by this case, Dr. Bober.
Yes, it's really disturbing, and when you consider the fact that he had a similar event with his father just a year prior to that, it sort of boggles the mind how something like this could happen again.
How you doing? I'm coming to you with a hot, juicy, sensual message on behalf of Rose Sparks. Rose Sparks is a prescription treatment that could be the answer. I've heard from a friend of a friend who...
Most certainly. And Mom, it sounds like, had gone out to Omaha and had picked up her son. He was on bail, GPS bracelet, the whole 9 yards. They determine out there that they can't prove that he didn't act in self-defense in killing his father. She takes him in, and then somewhere along the way, he is, put into the hospital under the Baker Act. So Mom obviously knew her son was having some issues. We don't really have any insight into what those issues are at this point, but we do know that he was accused of some acts of violence against her, had been seen, grabbing her, pulling her hair, things of that nature. This is really terrifying stuff.
It's something I see all the time. I see parents.
Really?
I do. I see parents all the time with kids who are very aggressive and violent towards them. But maternal instincts are very strong, and they want to believe in them, and they would literally lay down their life to protect their child, and that even means to their own detriment. So this is not so hard to believe for me. But if you look at this young man and you look at his history of violence, I mean, the greatest risk factor is his prior history of violence. But we don't know more than that. We don't know if he was diagnosed with any number of mental disorders, if he was using substances, if he had a history of trauma. The sheriff referred to him as a psychopath, but I think it's more complicated. It's more nuanced than that. Psychopaths are people who are cold, they lack empathy, they manipulate people. It's not a formal diagnosis in what we call the DSM-5. Someone who is 17 years old might have a diagnosis of what we call conduct disorder, where they violate societal norms, and then when they turn 18, it becomes antisocial personality disorder. But I think there's still a lot of very significant unanswered questions here.
A lot of questions. I mean, we don't know if he was receiving medication. I mean, we do know, though, that he was placed in the hospital under the Baker Act. So mom knew, obviously, something was going on. And I'm a mom. I mean, you want to do everything you can to help your kids. And I don't think that we are naturally equipped to deal with mental health issues and whatever was going on with him. We really don't know what was going on in his mind. But I went on mom's social media, Kathy Griffith's social media, and it's just amazing to me. We have the mugshot and the picture of this knife that he claims his mother fell on. And then we have all of these photos that I found on social media. They spent the July 4th weekend in Washington, D.C. They went to a tour of the White House. He graduated early and was headed to college early. He went into college with 18 credits already under his belt. So he's a smart kid. He has to have some level of intelligence. She even bought him a brand new car for graduating early. So mom is trying to, I mean, everything looks happy on social media. This is like the danger of social media, too. Everything looks good on social media.
I call it the Facebook
Things
fallacy.
were not good.
Right. The Facebook fallacy. People always portray their best life on Facebook, but so many people we know are suffering, and that's just not the reality. This is someone who obviously has trouble regulating themselves, managing their emotions, and can act out aggressively. It seems like in both these situations, it probably wasn't something that he planned out, although we don't know that for sure. But it seems like he is someone that goes from 0 to 100 in just a second and just boils over. So I would be curious to know what his mental health history is.
The sheriff said that, he had become angry, and I guess every parent can relate to this. Mom took away his video games at one point. I mean, they argued about chores. These are things that are pretty common that parents and kids argue about. So you talk about the boiling over. I mean, these are normal everyday things that parents squabble with their kids.
Today's actually a really exciting day because we got to unfold one of these units right in front of a crowd of people full of nonprofit organizations, large donors around the Oklahoma City area. Everybody's pretty excited about what we're putting out here. This is the first time they've seen it. Some of them have seen it before, and they're still in awe just as much as they were when they saw it in a video or a post. And maybe even more so when they get on site, they get to go inside, they get to feel what the...
Let's talk about Joy Reid. I'm so torn. Oh, Victor, I'm so torn. I'm thrilled she's gone. She literally was the most racist person on television. Her and her most favorite guest, Ellie Mistel. So they deserve 100% both to be fired. But, it's like we won't have her to kick around anymore. And there's a little sadness in that. This is one of the many reasons why most of us are absolutely delighted to see her get fired from this show. And it appears from MSNBC, tonight we believe will be here last night. A little walk down memory lane in SOT 1.
But in America, there's a thing about both white vigilantism and white tears, particularly male white tears. Really white tears in general, because that's what Karens are, right? They Karen out, and then as soon as they get caught, it's like, Green Waterworks.
Ron DeSantis has been waging a full-scale war against the black past. It's illegal to make white people feel uncomfortable in Florida.
You also have the restrictions in schools over what can be taught about race and gender for fear white children might feel bad when they find out that not all white people in history were heroes. Do any of you guys trust Uncle Clarence? These Republicans are dangerous. They're dangerous to our national security because stoking that kind of soft white nationalism eventually leads to the hard. From the Tea Party on, they're voting on race. The idea that they can't get whatever job they want, a black person got it, therefore drive all the blacks out of the colleges. They're just voting specifically on racial animus. At this stage, it isn't about economics. They want to turn every state into their white Christian nationalist hell. It's DEFCON 1, y'all. Take action and stay woke.
So, we'll miss her a little, I guess. Victor, what do you make of the fact that even MSNBC finally had enough?
Yeah, I mean, if you had just substituted the word black for white and any other person had said what she did and just said black instead of white, they would have been fired in 24 hours. She knew that, too. So I remember, though, you remember, Megan, when she first got on, she had this whole paper trail of being a homophobe. Do you remember that? And then she said, I'm going to get the FBI to investigate because I was hacked. And then she completely lied on the air. She was never hacked. And then she said she may not have been hacked, but she couldn't. Then she said she was almost as if she was in a suspended state of animation. I may have written this, but I don't remember ever saying this. And it was so
Doesn't
pathetic.
sound like
she
me.
would have been. Yeah, she should have been fired for that. And then she had a big rant once, I remember, where she was mad that so-called white women had cornrows, and this was cultural appropriation, and she was going to wear authentic black hairstyles. And then all of a sudden, she started wearing blonde. She dyed her hair blonde and straightened it.
She looked like Trump.
Wow. Yeah, and I thought, wow, you're culturally. Why do you want to look like an Anglo-Saxon after you gave a lecture that nobody?
Why can't I wear the cornrows or have my daughter get cornrows in the Bahamas on a trip? But she can take my hair. She can try to imitate my hair, no problem whatsoever.
So all I'm saying is that she was a sad person. She had a horrible. I'm not trying to psychoanalyze her, but she was terribly insecure, and it came out. It just exuded from her insecurity. And she was thrashing around, and it was really the problem of the management to put her out there. They should have yanked her from the very beginning. And that Elie Mystal, he was an outright racist. I remember he said right after COVID, I got used to not seeing white people anymore. It was a good feeling. And he just said things that were, I mean, they were horribly racist, and they kept spouting that filth. And it was horrible, and nobody ever said anything. And then finally, her ratings had stayed. I don't think they were ever great, but the only reason they took them off was that people got sick of her after the election. Or they would have kept her on. They were never bothered by what she said. They were just trying to adjudicate whether it was good enough to justify the advertisers. I don't know.
So they replaced her with three other hosts. Two of whom are black, one of whom is Hispanic. And I guess they think that will save them. We'll see. They fired everybody. Her entire staff has been laid off, which apparently they found out about the cancellation from the trade mags or from the internet, same as the rest of us. Classic NBC move. They're such a classy group over there. But it is true that among the dumbest people over at MSNBC, she appears to have been the dumbest and the worst rated. We just pulled the ratings from Thursday night. On Thursday night, this is in the 25 to 54 demo. I mean, this is just unbelievable. Like, truly. When I was at Fox, a bad night in the demo would be in the threes, 300 and change. But it was often 600,000, 700,000 and change. In the demo, those are now the overall numbers, the total audience numbers on a great number for most of cable news. Here's her demo number from Thursday night. 59,000. She was 4,000 away from Slashies, which is 9,000, which is 50,000. She was 59,000. That's what she got in the overall demo. She lost to her competitor on CNN, who had 104,000. Lost to Laura Ingraham, who had 389,000. Lost the whole ratings race inside MSNBC, where their great white hope, Jen Psaki, who's taking over now at 9. This is all part of a reshuffling. She got 65,000 in the key demo. 65. That's okay. That's their future. Rachel Maddow, she's their big star for $30 million a year. All you have to pull is 144,000 in the demo, which I think is what we got. Maybe overnight at 3 a.m. during a weekend program lineup at Fox. 144,000 now earns you $30 million a year on MSNBC. And then the next lowest, after Reed and Psaki, was Stephanie Rule with 88,000. Lawrence O'Donnell got 103,000. These are all terrible, terrible, terrible numbers. And that's one of the many reasons Joy Reid is out, because she was not only a racist, very obvious and incredibly alienating, but she didn't rate, Victor. And I think she lasted longer than she otherwise would have, given the fact that she constantly played the race card.
Yeah, and one of the reasons they lost the election, there were many, but one of the reasons is that they were so anachronistic. They looked at these legacy media, NBC, ABC, CBS, PBS, NPR, LA Times, Chicago Tribune, Washington Post, New York, and they thought that because 60 Minutes, they thought that these were back in the 1960s or 70s with these huge ratings, and then they didn't realize that, Joe Rogan, your show, all these podcasters, all this, Fox is doing well, Newsmax had bigger than some of these people. There was and then there were online influence, there was a whole new media, and you think that these hip people from Silicon Valley who were left-wing would have told them, or somebody, but they were very out-of-date, old fuddy-duddies, and they kept sending, they had an opportunity with Joe Biden at the Super Bowl. They had an opportunity with Kamala Harris to go on Joe Rogan. And they just were so either out of it and they didn't understand that the whole media world had changed, or they were afraid because they were not these sympathetic, obsequious, left-wing legacy interviewers. Or they had to pay them like Oprah or Cardi B or somebody. But whatever it was, they didn't understand the new media at all.
Yeah, and we'll see whether, she's probably going to come over into the digital lane. We'll see whether she has any followings. So far, like Tiffany Cross, who also had this type of a program on MSNBC, which is just all about her hatred for whites, she decided to go independent. She's been an abject failure. Don Lemon's podcast, abject failure. So we'll see how she does. Here is just a couple of bits of background on her anti-LGBTQ past. Between 2007, Variety provided this good recap. In 2009, she blogged about then Florida Governor Charlie Crist, referring to him as Miss Charlie, tagging the post's gay politicians, suggesting that gay men prey on young men in a way that many people consider to be immoral. She said she was repulsed by the film Brokeback Mountain and said, "Does that make me homophobic? Probably." In a 2018 statement, she claimed that the posts were fabricated by an unknown external party who'd gained access to her blog. She said she'd hired a cybersecurity expert. I remember this. This is so fun. She later conceded no evidence of hacking had been found. She issued a blanket apology noting, quote, "I genuinely do not believe I wrote those hateful things because they are completely alien to me. But I can definitely understand, based on things I have tweeted and have written in the past, why some people don't believe me. Also that because we have brains and we know no one jumped on your blog to write a bunch of homophobic stuff and nothing else and then got off." And then she claimed there was a fake FBI investigation.
If you have someone like that is so egregious and just flat out lies, and then you keep her there, then that tells her, I can do anything on the air. I can say anything outrageous because I have done the most outrageous thing in the world, and they kept me here, and they knew that. And after that, they had no control over her. because she
Yeah,
always
but-
felt she could play the race card because she had. And the same thing with her guest. And I think
Hold that thought for 1 second, because we have a little
Yeah.
bit more, because the other thing that kept her on the air was her serious case of TDS. I mean, she's a massive Trump hater. They all are on MS, but my God, this woman's unhinged. A few examples.
Moisturizer helps your skin, right? Nope. What about collagen? Nope. Do this to erase wrinkles and...
We've laid out the stakes in this crucial election, where one side stands for freedom while the other meets the textbook definition of fascism, namely a far-right dictatorial regime like Hitler's Germany.
We still don't know for sure whether Donald Trump was hit by a bullet.
For me, there is something wonderfully poetic. The first person to actually criminally prosecute Donald Trump is a black Harvard grad, and a black woman is doing that same exact thing in Georgia. Donald Trump is being held to account by the very multicultural, multiracial democracy that he's trying to dismantle. Go DEI. My DEIs are bringing it home. What he's telling his voters, his black Haitians are violent cannibals. Black people are the enemy. Black people are going to be responsible if and when I lose, and you are permitted through my language to do violence to them.
That was her interpretation of Springfield. It's crazy. We continue to face uncertainty when it comes to the economy, with a perfect storm brewing as Social Security and Medicare hit a breaking point as the largest generation is hitting retirement. A smaller workforce means a smaller tax base. You pair that with our growing national debt and rising cost of living, and we could have a big problem. So what are you doing now to protect your family for the future? Well, gold can be a safe haven in hard economic times, and Birch Gold makes it easy to diversify a portion of your savings into physical gold. Birch Gold will help you transition an existing IRA or 401k into an IRA in gold, and it does not cost you 1 cent out of pocket. Protect your future today. Text MK to 989898 and get your free info kit on gold and a copy of the ultimate guide for gold in the Trump era with a foreword by Donald Trump Jr. There's no obligation, just information. Birch Gold has earned the trust of countless Americans looking to safeguard their savings. Just text my initials MK to the number 989898 today. Thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw,
There's another piece about her.
Following a number of bombshell reports that host Joy Reid was not only losing her show, but was leaving the network, MSNBC made it official on Monday when it announced a sweeping lineup overhaul that saw Reid and fellow weeknight host Alex Wagner having their programs canceled. Additionally, the liberal cable news network expanded the role of former White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki, who will now anchor the pivotal 9 p.m. Eastern Time hour from Tuesday to Friday. Replacing Wagner, once-star Rachel Maddow returns to only hosting on Monday nights. In her first significant move since succeeding Rashida Jones as the network's president, Rebecca Cutler also revealed that several other programs would be expanded, canceled or retooled as MSNBC looks to separate itself from NBC News following Comcast's decision to spin off NBC Universal's cable assets into the new company SpinCo. In a memo sent to MSNBC staff on Monday, Cutler announced that Reid, who has been with the network for over a decade, would indeed be leaving MSNBC, and her 7 p.m. show has come to an end. In the Rideout's place, the 3 current hosts of the weekend, Simone Sanders Townsend, Michael Steele, and Alicia Menendez, will take over that time slot and air a 2-hour broadcast on Monday nights. Prior to the trio making their move to weeknights in April, a rotating slate of anchors will host in Reid's old time slot. Joy Reid is leaving the network, and we thank her for her countless contributions over the years, Cutler wrote. Her work has been recognized with several esteemed honors, including most recently, the 2025 NAACP Image Award for Outstanding News Series. Wagner, who was bumped from her Tuesday through Friday, 9 p.m. slot after Maddow returned to 5 nights a week after Donald Trump's inauguration, will now transition to a senior political analyst role. Saki will now move her show, which aired on Sunday afternoon and Monday evening, to Wagner's former hour. With the weekend's current hosts moving to weeknights, the network is shifting other personalities to the show and expanding its hours. Moving forward, the weekend will air on Saturday and Sunday mornings and evenings. Jonathan Capehart will lead the morning edition, while Eamon Mohielden will co-anchor the evening edition. Both hosts' current weekend solo shows will be canceled. Network sources, meanwhile, added that MSNBC is in discussions with Politico's Eugene Daniels and New York University professor Melissa Murray to join the network as hosts. Cutler also revealed that the network is sunsetting its production operations in Miami, which means Katie Fang's weekend show and Jose Diaz-Balart's weekday news broadcast will be discontinued. Diaz-Balart will continue to anchor his NBC News weekend nightly news broadcast, while Fang will remain with MSNBC as a legal correspondent. On the dayside front, the network noted that Ana Cabrera reports will expand to 10 a.m. to 12 p.m., Chris Jansing reports will shift to 12 to 2 p.m., and Katie Tur reports will add another hour to anchor from 2 to 4 p.m. Ollie Velshie's weekend show will also expand from its current tower format to 3 hours. In the coming months, I will have more news to share on expanding our Washington operation, including establishing a bureau and building a team of domestic and international.
Take a bathroom break real quick here. Oh, wow. Keep going here. All right, bros. I don't outplay her, bro. Ain't no outplay. So, yeah. Outplay. Hang on there. Okay. Oh, Lord, bro. Don't worry about me taking a hit on a cigarette there, bro. I'm dying of cancer anyway. Mind your own business, bro. How about that? Kinda ain't worried about that at this point, or Mr. taking a hit on your cigarette. No, damn.
It is Monday, February 24th, 2025, and the swamp is in meltdown mode after President Trump announces Dan Bongino will be the next deputy director of the FBI, working alongside Kash Patel. Heads really are exploding over this, but there's one person in particular who's shaking in their boots, more nervous than the lot of them, Adam Schiff. And he's got good reason to be. Wait till you see this. Also, Apple confirming this morning that they will be reshoring, relocating their manufacturing base from China back to the United States. This is a huge economic victory for the Trump administration. We're going to explain. And Ukraine's president learning what happens when you F around and find out. Also, more stories as well from around the country. But before we get started, thank you for liking and sharing these videos. It really helps out the channel. And consider subscribing so you don't miss these regular updates. Donald Trump announcing last night that Dan Bongino will be the next deputy director of the FBI, working under Director Kash Patel. Trump making the announcement on Truth Social, writing, "Great news for law enforcement and American justice. Dan Bongino, a man of incredible love and passion for our country, has just been named the next deputy director of the FBI by the man who will be the best ever director, Kash Patel." Dan Bongino taking to his podcast to publicly accept the role and make a promise to you, to all of us. Watch.
Vision of President Trump, Attorney General Bondi, and Director Patel. I am going to do my job to implement that vision. And I can tell you right now, we are going to try our best. Every single thing I have in there, every single strand of DNA cell in my body is going to be dedicated towards keeping this homeland safe, no matter what. We are going to reestablish faith in this institution. The FBI belongs to the American people. Doesn't belong to me. Doesn't belong to anyone else but the American people. But this is the honor of a lifetime, and it's a serious mission.
This is great news. The deputy director's like the chief of operations, the ops manager at the FBI. Whatever the director decides, his deputy is number two. Make sure it gets carried out, executed. You want someone in that job who doesn't mess around, who won't slow walk your orders and your mission. Dan Bongino, we all know, is a great choice for that post. 100% MAGA loyal, and will be responsible to oversee all major FBI investigations, all high-profile investigations. And last week, the Bureau opened a major DC corruption probe, opened by Pam Bondi, investigating the kickback schemes uncovered by Elon and Doge. Trump announced that investigation at Pam Bondi's swearing in, and what we're hearing is that this is what Bongino is likely being directed to oversee on day one. Make sure no funny business, no leaks wiggle out. Make sure everyone on this investigative team is solid and on mission, because unlike normal investigations, this one is abnormally sensitive. Investigating the swamp of DC means you're investigating politicians, bigwig power brokers, and the like. And out of everyone inside the swamp, who out of all these swamp creatures is most nervous about this? California Senator Adam Schiff, Shifty Schiff, who has very good reason to be afraid. Listen to what Deputy Director Bongino said last week. Watch this.
Why is Adam Schiff so worried? Folks, I strongly encourage you to go back and take another look today at the Russia collusion hoax. I know it's a story that's old and a lot of people want to move on. I'm going to be straight with you. I don't want to move on. We had the FBI, in conjunction with the Department of Justice, officials in Congress, foreign governments, and intel people, fabricate a story, invent a story that could have caused and done serious long-term harm to international relations with a nuclear-powered foe. It's kind of a big freaking deal. I'm not letting it go. And you should listen to me. This is going to be very important in the coming days. I'm not letting this go. I want to find out what happened, because it can never happen again. Not to a Democrat, not to a Republican, not to a Libertarian, not to any United States citizen. You do not get to alter or try to change the course of electoral politics by fabricating a story, hijacking the justice system then to give the patina of truth to a fake story. You don't get to do that. Why do I bring that up now? Because who is the ringmaster of that circus? Yes, Adam Schiff. And no, I'm not letting it go.
I really consider how amazing this is. The same agency that helped frame Donald Trump for Russian collusion and raid Mar-a-Lago is now being run by Kash Patel and Dan Bongino. If this was a movie, you wouldn't believe it. In another story, Apple announcing this morning $500 billion reshoring investment in the United States over the next 4 years. The goal to reshore, to move their manufacturing base back to the U.S. from China. This is huge news, huge economic news, announcing plans to build a new AI server factory in Houston, hire 20,000 new American workers, good, solid manufacturing jobs focused on AI and silicon engineering. We reported on this last week before they announced this news. We were hearing from Trump World that one of the largest companies on the planet was planning to move manufacturing from China back to the U.S. We read between the lines that it was Apple. Apple's the largest company on the planet, and it turns out it was. Watch.
Germans have figured out a way to increase water pressure by 15 times without using any energy. This new $80 jet pressure accelerator harnesses the cleaning force of a hydraulic power system. And its record-breaking success is leaving big names like Lowe's, Home Depot, and Amazon trailing behind. In just 30 days, it has sold 1.8 million units, none of which came through these big box stores. It's called Jet Sono, and it's been showcased several times by top networks such as Fox, MSNBC, ABC, CNN, and NBC. But restrictions may come soon, with growing debate over whether civilians should be allowed to handle such potent military-grade technology. While it's still legally available, thousands are rushing to get one before any restrictions.
$1 trillion. That's the largest ever U.S. spending plan for the world's biggest company, and it comes with thousands of new jobs across multiple states. Apple is spending 50% more this year in 2025 than it did during the first Trump term. So $500 billion over 4 years this time. 4 years, not 5 years like they usually do. 20,000 new jobs, a new AI server factory in Houston, Texas.
This is a huge deal. All iPhones and Apple products are manufactured in China, along with almost every other manufacturing company. The U.S. is an importing nation, the exact opposite of China. They've robbed our jobs, folks, all made possible through American politicians and prior presidents who purposely stripped this country apart, sold it off to the highest bidder. Trump's economic policy is to fix that. rebuild our manufacturing base. He started weeks ago by implementing a 10% universal tariff on all Chinese imports. What do you know? Apple announcing they're falling in line. They'd prefer to not pay that 10% tariff to build cheaper in China. They can avoid the tariff by building in the United States. Tim Cook writing on X this morning, as a proud American company, we are thrilled to continue to make significant investments in the U.S. Today, we're announcing a $500 billion commitment to support American innovation, advanced manufacturing, and high-tech job creation. Trump posting on Truth Social, Apple has just announced a record $500 billion investment in the U.S. The reason, faith in what we are doing, without which they wouldn't be investing 10 cents. Thank you, Tim Cook and Apple. And why is Trump so thrilled about this? Apple is the largest company in the world. This is what you want if you're Donald Trump. Smaller companies will now follow their lead. Here's what even Mike Allen, co-founder of left-wing media company Axios, admitted this morning about this, just how significant this really is. Watch.
This Apple announcement this morning, which just popped 6 a.m. Eastern, all the details are up, the lead story on Axios. This is a landmark story for a couple of reasons. One, the effort by the president to bring manufacturing back to the U.S., this is a massive commitment to that. And as we say in our story, this gives Trump the leverage to say to other companies, Apple can do this. Apple is bringing these jobs into the U.S. Apple is investing in the U.S. Why can't you? Why won't you? And the statement out this morning from Apple CEO Tim Cook, talking about being bullish on the future of America, talking about writing an extraordinary new chapter in the history of American innovation. So that's one bucket. Two, there's an incredible footprint for this. This is all across the United States, and it's part of the big story that Axios has been telling, that it's no longer just the coast. Look at where some of these big investments are. The swing states of Arizona, Michigan, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, Nevada, red states, the massive investment that you were talking about in Texas.
In another story, former presidential candidate Kamala Harris visiting Pacific Palisades this morning, touching down to do a publicity-stunted tour, gearing up for her California governor run, just like she was anointed last year as the Democrat candidate. No debates, no choice, Dems just stuck with her, chosen, anointed by the party bosses. Well, the same thing's about to happen again in California. Watch her today speaking to reporters on the ground in Pacific Palisades. Imagine, just imagine if she had won. This is who our president would have been for the next 4 years. Lord, help us. Watch.
What goes through your mind when you see this? You're here, you're now seeing it up close.
It's not only seeing it, Alex, you can smell it. You can feel it, right? So it's seeing it with our eyes, and many people have seen it. You all are covering it. But to literally be on the ground here, you can smell the smoke that was here. You can feel the toxicity, frankly, of the environment. You can feel the energy of all of the folks who are still here on the ground.
In another story, Trump's special envoy Steve Witkoff has expressed expectations that we will be signing a rare earth minerals agreement with Ukraine this week, after Zelensky tried to back out of the deal or shop this deal around to the Europeans last week behind the Americans' backs. Like we said then, that was a very stupid move, as he never would have been able to do that. The Europeans would never have gone along with that. They wouldn't have been able to. Well, it looks like Zelensky's now capitulating. Watch.
You're telling me that you would rather do this than this. The ratcheting function makes this better than pretty much any Allen set or screwdriver. The adjustability sets this thing even further apart from many other screwdriver or Allen set. I'll need it to be really long to get into a tight space, or maybe I'll need to add some extra tension. A GBL just want a tiny little stubby.
Well, Jake, let me say this with regard to the mineral rights agreement. The president came into office, and lo and behold, what did he find out? That we are the majority share of the aid to Ukraine, so we're funding it, and we were funding it with no arrangement to pay it back. Alternatively, the Europeans, who were most affected by this war, were funding the minority share, and they had agreements to pay it back. So, as is typical of the president, he's very, very sensible. He said to himself, that makes no sense to me. Why would the American public, taxpayers here, be funding the majority share, not get anything back? The Europeans funding the minority share, they get everything back. So this agreement is much about repayment for all that we have done on behalf of the Ukrainian people. And that's the way the president sees it. I expect to see a deal signed this week. You saw President Zelensky waver in his commitment towards that a week ago. The president sent a message to him. He's not wavering anymore. I think there's a reason he's not wavering. It's because he realizes that we have done so much and that agreement belongs being signed. And I think you'll see it signed this week.
We are talking close to $500 billion in rare earth minerals that are critical to national security. The types of minerals that China has carte blanche control of at the moment. Almost like 98% or something of all rare earth minerals are mined from China. And in return for all the money and support that we've given Ukraine over the last 3 years, President Trump wants something in return. I think it's a pretty good deal. Zelensky coming out yesterday hinting that he realizes this. He realizes he has no choice but to do this deal, telling reporters that it's not $500 billion, not $300 billion. He believes the U.S. only gave his country $100 billion, and that Ukraine doesn't owe the U.S. anything, that the money was gifted to him by Joe Biden. What? We'll see about that. Watch.
Я знаю, що у нас було 100. І це факт. І я не збираюсь визнавати 500. Хто б що не говорив, як би ми не спілкувались. При всій повазі, ще раз, при всій повазі до партнерів, але, я стійко стою, тому що це правдива ситуація. Абсолютно ми праві. І друга ситуація, якщо чесно, навіть 100 мільярдів я не готовий фіксувати. Поясню чому. Тому що ми не маємо визнавати гранти як борги. Подобається це чи не подобається? Я домовлявся з Байденом і домовлявся з Конгресом Сполучених Штатів Америки. Я вдячен Конгресу. Це була присутність двох партій і підтримка.
Look, this is all negotiations, trying to get some leverage, push back a little bit, because behind the scenes, this is happening. Here was Carolyn Levitt this morning saying this deal, along with a larger peace deal, could happen as soon as this week. Watch this.
How soon we can expect Putin, Trump, and where? Will it be in Saudi Arabia or any other place?
I don't have anything to detail or to read out. Right now, the president and his team are very much focused on continuing negotiations with both sides of this war to end the conflict, and the president is very confident we can get it done this week. What makes him confident? What do you think it'll take him?
All right, that wraps up this episode. Like, subscribe. We'll see you next time.
Destroyer blown up. Ship is on fire. Problem solved, sir.
Welcome to the Devil's Sea.
A 3% IRA match with Robinhood Gold. The reckoning has commenced.
And welcome back here to Live Now from Fox. I'm Andrew Kraft. Looks like the UN Security Council just wrapped up. So let's keep it moving with more of these top headlines. Let's go to Washington now. Live picture there at the U.S. Capitol and at the White House. And still the fallout continues over this tweet that Elon Musk of Doge sent over the weekend regarding the 2 million strong federal workforce, telling federal employees at federal agencies to list 5 things that they did the prior week and email them in by a deadline tonight. We're going to be talking about this even more. Fox's Rebecca Castor, though, filed this report. Let's watch.
Federal employees have a question to answer. What did you do last week? Elon Musk and Doge want to know and are giving workers until 11:59 tonight to respond to an email listing 5 accomplishments.
If you can't name 5 things that you did last week, then you should not be on the government payroll.
But some workers are being told not to respond, including staff at the FBI and the Pentagon. Meanwhile, time is up for federal employees working remotely.
It's a tremendous waste of taxpayer dollars to be paying for people in offices that are not showing up for work.
Elon Musk says starting this week, those who still fail to return to office will be placed on administrative leave. And he defended his aggressive cost-cutting measures at the conservative CPAC conference last week.
It's money that's taken away from things that are destructive to the country and from organizations that hate you to you. That's awesome.
Thousands of federal workers have already lost their jobs, with as many as 200,000 potentially out the door. In addition, 75,000 employees accepted buyouts.
If I could say one thing to Elon Musk, it's like, please put a dose of compassion in this. These are real people. These are real lives. These are mortgages. It's a false narrative to say we have to cut and you have to be cruel to do it as well. We can do both.
A new federal lawsuit challenging Musk's threat to fire federal workers who don't list their accomplishments was filed in California Monday. In Washington, Rebecca Castor, Fox News.
Rebecca, thanks so much. Back out live there to the White House. This was the tweet that kind of started all of this off. Elon Musk saying, consistent with President Trump's instructions, all federal employees will shortly receive an email requesting to understand what they got done last week. He says failure to respond will be taken as a resignation. So we're about to bring into the conversation some analysis on this and other matters in the Trump administration. Stand by.
Our team has taken the lead. Spotter returning to ship.
All right, like I said, we do want to keep it moving, though, with this conversation. Want to bring into the conversation there at the Washington Examiner, columnist Tiana Lowe-Desher. She joins me. Tiana, thanks for being with us here. I know you've been following all this extremely closely. I guess I have to ask, you know, with some of these federal agencies, it seems like the message to some of the workforces underneath them is mixed. Hey, you got to abide by this, what Elon Musk said, or you don't. So is this causing unnecessary confusion?
This is certainly the most high-level pushback that we've seen from the executive branch itself against Doge's, let's say, the accusations of overreach. So you have specifically in an HHS memo, Secretary Kennedy has changed gears a couple of times, first saying respond, then saying don't respond. And the third guidance now says, if you do respond, be broad enough that you can assume that foreign adversaries could intercept these emails. And that's in part because unlike Doge's buyout for those federal workers that agreed to resign and get 8 months paid sabbatical, this doesn't seem that it has gone through the whole Trump administration's clearance. It's not necessarily clear that the Oval Office knew about it, which of course brings up the classification issue, which is why you have the FBI very notably saying, do not respond to these emails.
You know, Tiana, I have to ask, though, does Doge run the risk of moving too fast, too soon here? Is this a perfect example? Because I think a lot of people watching, they're asking themselves, you know, if I was a federal worker at one of these federal agencies, where does Elon Musk come off. He's not my boss. Why do I have to follow what he says in a tweet over the weekend telling him what I did the previous week? Is that a valid thing to think right now?
Yes, and also crucially, he's not Senate confirmed, right? So at the end of the day, if you work for the FBI, you look to Kash Patel because that's your legal advisor, right? In Silicon Valley, the motto is move fast and break things. And I am not at all going to discredit how successful Elon Musk has been at that. If you take a company like Twitter, he's able to slash the workforce by 75%, and it's still highly operational, right? He proved all of his haters wrong when it came to Twitter. The federal government is a different beast. And a better way of thinking about a lot of this guidance is that he's trying to get people to leave voluntarily. Federal workers are not like private sector workers. If you are there past that initial probationary period, it is extremely hard to fire you without cause. And even if you do have cause, there's a 30-day notice. You have the right to appeal. And if your appeal to an outside agency wins, you get full back pay and benefits, right? So part of why they're going after these probationary workers with a very broad mechanism is because they just want to get at anyone who they can. And that means you will get some babies thrown out with the bathwater.
Yeah, I mean, I think the way to go about this is important, too. Do you think Elon Musk, though, is undercutting the rationale or the intent of why this is needed? You know, trimming the budget deficit, the debt, trimming the federal workforce. From a conservative standpoint, everyone's on board with that. But if you don't do it correctly or right, that runs the risk, right, of alienating people, even though the intentions are good.
So I think even more so than the email thing, because what Trump and Musk both have done extremely well throughout their entire careers is making their opponents defend the less defensive, right? Elon, on principle, sending out an email asking 2 million federal employees to respond with what their jobs are, that can feel, a little bit schoolmarmy. But the fact is, in the private sector, you have to do that all the time. You have to do reports of what you've worked on. And the fact that you have federal workers filing lawsuits over that makes it seem like, if you get in the gutter with the pig, you're also going to get mud on you. But the bigger issue is indeed, if you think about the cost-cutting mechanism of Doge, a couple million here, a couple million there, is 1.5 million in, let's say, NIH funding for medical research. That includes Alzheimer's. We currently spend $250 billion just in Medicare and Medicaid on Alzheimer's treatment, right? So why would you want to undercut the research that in the long run actually could save the taxpayer money? And that will be, I think, the longer political fight.
So, Tiana, though, Musk, though, it seems, is operating on the assumption that federal workers don't do anything all day. Is that fair?
Of course it's not fair. In any work, first of all, the federal workforce is huge. It is at least 2 million civilian workers. And remember, a lot of these, when we talk about DEI and whatnot, yeah, there are a lot of positions where we don't want to have DEI coordinators at USAID to help out gender-affirming clinics in Guatemala. But one form of what is effectively affirmative action is for our veterans. We do have a certain class of employment that is designed to help veterans transition back out of the military, because we know that is a difficult transition, and we know it's not operated like private sector employment where it's about maximizing, the shareholder value. And so, no, it's not fair to paint with such a broad brush. And there is the issue, politically speaking, that I think Trump is less scared about, but that within Northern Virginia, where you have so many employees who don't just work directly for the federal government, but also are contractors, are reliant on some of these grants, that could really hurt the Republicans' hopes in the upcoming Virginia elections.
Yeah, I mean, have we seen any polling yet with regard to the American people and how they think the Doge efforts are going? I've seen a lot on social media of some of these Republican members of Congress going back to their districts and getting an earful from constituents about what Doge is doing. I mean, we're only a month into this administration. So does Doge run the risk of alienating voters?
I think the issue is if it becomes a distraction and the Trump administration can't follow through on those key issues, right? Because right now you have a totally separate debate on the Hill is about extending the Trump tax cut. And while, Democratic critics like to point that as, oh, it's a tax cut for the wealthy, the fact is that if the TCJA isn't extended, you are looking at 62% of households seeing a tax increase at the start of 2026, which is a midterm election year. So it is important for the middle class and for the working class, those tax cuts get extended in a way that is sustainable. So the issue becomes if DOGE stops the Trump administration from focusing on, let's say, solving the bird flu, which is a cause of the egg price explosion, right? Egg prices exploded by 15% in January alone. And clearly that is a problem that started under Biden. And it was the Biden administration that really dropped the ball on the vaccinating the chickens, right? But that's something where DOGE accidentally fired some of the agriculture department workers that were working on solving that epidemic.
Yeah, we put up our live picture there at the White House because I do have a statement in from the White House about this email and this tweet from Musk. So OPM, that is the Office of Personnel Management, that's like the federal government's HR, told HR leaders from federal agencies they're not mandating employees be fired if they don't reply to the OMP's 5 things email by tonight's midnight deadline. So, as you know, Musk tweeted that failure to reply would be taken as a resignation. And Trump even said today in the Oval Office that if you don't answer, you're semi-fired or fired, noting exceptions like what you had mentioned, Tina, for DOD and FBI and confidentiality concerns. The White House saying in his statement this: everyone is working together as one unified team at the direction of President Trump. Any notion to the contrary is completely false here. So you don't see any cleavage from Trump and Musk on this. What does it mean you're fired or semi-fired?
Well, Trump has made it clear that Elon has the mandate, right? Trump has said, he put out his Truth Social over the weekend saying, I want Elon to move faster. And a part of this is not just getting rid of those probationary workers that don't want to have the oversight, but also just reorienting the executive branch away from this notion that it's an unelected, but also unaccountable bureaucracy. And the idea is, look, constitutionally speaking, if you work for the Agriculture Department, HHS, any of these agencies, you work at the pleasure of the president. And while we have, created some legal structures to try and have the veneer of independence, regulatory agencies, the Federal Reserve, really, if you're working in a political position, especially, the idea is that, yes, you should be accountable to the administration's wishes because Trump does not want a repeat of being sabotaged as he was during his first term.
Okay, 2 more headlines we want to get to, Tiana. Thanks for being with us here. An announcement over the weekend, a pretty big pick at the FBI for Deputy Director. President Trump made this official in a post on Truth Social. Dan Bongino. Of course, he used to work at the Fox News channel. Who is he? Why is he so controversial here? From my understanding, he's never worked at the FBI before, so why would Trump pick him as Deputy Director to Kash Patel here? Do you think this is a good pick?
So I actually do think it's quite an inspired pick, especially when you consider what Trump really prioritizes. We know he loves effective communicators, and we've seen it work to his benefit already. After the 4 years of Joe Biden's administration feeling so silent and feeling so unaccountable, it was nice seeing, the morning after that horrible plane crash in D.C., seeing Pete Hegseth just do straight to Twitter selfie video explaining an update. And I think we'll see definitely more of that with Dan Bongino. But Bongino's background is Secret Service. And a part of this pivot is to more broadly consider the FBI reorienting itself back towards its mission as law enforcement rather than just merely intelligence. And more importantly, these intelligence operations that have been heavily criticized, not just by Republicans today, but also in the aftermath of 9/11 as entrapment. And so with Bongino, you're really going to see a focus, I think, on that law enforcement apparatus of FBI, where the FBI has had problems far beyond the political issues that Trump has cared about.
Usually, though, the deputy director is one of these senior federal law enforcement agents within the agency itself. And some of the FBI agents associations and other unions that represent those members, they're stunned by this pick because it is such a departure from the norm. I mean, does Bongino have his work cut out there at the agency to win them over, the rank and file?
Certainly, but I think that Bongino's argument would be this is the mandate that Trump entered office, even more so than Doge, right? Trump did not run as a incredibly staunch, budget hawk. He did not say, I'm going to cut Social Security, Medicare, any of that. But he ran very explicitly against the deep state, and this has been part of the messaging at least since 2020, if not before that. And so I think Bongino's argument will be, there has to be an institutional respect for people that have more, let's say, managerial expertise within the bureau, but also that if you don't want to play ball, if we're going to get more of, what wound up being unearthed with Crossfire Hurricane in the aftermath of Russiagate, those are people that he doesn't want working for him anyways. And that's I think, part of the strategy of picking someone who is very much a firebrand, and I think Bongino would refer to himself as that as well.
Yeah, and it's common knowledge, is no secret, that President Trump himself is deeply distrustful of the FBI here. Kind of one more headline. We've been following here on Live Now from Fox the kind of battle in court between the Associated Press and the White House. Our live picture there at the White House. We learned today, because the parties were in court, that the judge in the case, McFadden, denied the AP's emergency motion to restore its access to White House press pool events. But the judge ordered expedited consideration of the matter, given the weighty issues at the heart of this. So this was just a denial of an emergency motion. It seems like the issue on the merits will continue there in court. The White House, with this statement, Caroline Leavitt, saying, as we have said from the beginning, asking the President of the United States questions in the Oval Office and aboard Air Force One is a privilege granted to journalists, not a legal right. We stand by our decision to hold the fake news accountable for their lies, and President Trump will continue to grant an unprecedented level of access to the press. She says this is the most transparent administration in history. So we just have to kind of wait and see how this resolves itself, but the Associated Press was not in the room there in the East Room today at the White House for the joint press conference between French President Macron and President Trump here, though apparently some of the French press pool did defer to the Associated Press bureau reporter out of Paris to ask a question there. Do you see this purely on free speech grounds, or is there something more to it than that?
No, I mean, it's fundamentally, from a legal perspective, it's hard to see how it's a First Amendment issue, because the issue isn't about communication, it's about access, right? Sure. There are tons of podcasters, independent reporters, local newspapers that cover what President Trump does, but they don't receive access. They don't have that hard pass. They don't have that permanent room in the briefing room. The bigger issue, and I think why you're really seeing the Trump administration triple down on it, is it's kind of trying to play the left at their own game. We saw for years the Associated Press, instead of referring to a transgender man as biological man who transitioned, go to assigned male at birth, right? As though somehow that's wrong, like the doctor messed up. We saw them no longer using terms illegal aliens instead of undocumented. They refused to refer to the southern border crisis as a crisis when you started reaching 100,000 crossings per month under the Biden administration. And so Trump is just trying to say, if you guys are fine changing the wording for all these other liberal pet causes, why not call it Gulf of America if legally speaking, that's, what the NOAA will call it, if that's what Google Maps is going to call it. And especially, it's not an inflammatory name. Mexico still considers itself part of the Americas more broadly. Sure. And so it's a bit of trolling for certain, but it's trolling to what they see as an edge of teaching them a lesson.
Okay, but should the White House right now, we're a month in, devoting their time, energy, and resources to trolling in this way? Of course, the Associated Press is a free, fair, independent media organization. They can say whatever they want. They can call it whatever they want, right?
Yes. No, I agree with you. Look, if there's any lesson from Trump term one, and his administration would be wise to remember it, you can call Gulf of America whatever you want and yell at the Associated Press whatever you want, as long as you get those egg prices down. And the fact is that voters feel much more pessimistic about the economy now than they did throughout, especially those first 3 years of the Trump administration. And while he does get a bit of a grace period because he did inherit inflation that was worsening at the end of the Biden administration, we saw it with the January inflation reports that have just come up, but there's TikTok. Trump was elected for many reasons.
I went to Dubai and found out that the rich people in Dubai never go to nail salons, but the secret of their neat and clean nails .
Now it's just how to get the money out as fast as possible before they come in and like pop it up. It truly feels like we're on the Titanic or throwing like gold bars off the top edge.
And we are back, y'all. Thank you for watching today. Go ahead and hit that like button, people. Y'all have been great with that, even though my video yesterday about Ilhan Omar, y'all were mad at me. But you know, it's all good, y'all. You know we family. I love y'all, and I hope you love me back. Hit that like button, people. You know it helps us out. It helps us, and it helps you because it helps us keep bringing you this content. Now, y'all, I have been following this Stacey Abrams story where she apparently founded or is somehow connected with 1, 2, 3, 20, who knows how many different organizations that were awarded a $2 billion, that's with a B, $2 billion grant from the Biden administration. And y'all, what I want to do today is I'm going to tell a story. I'm not going to do a lot more commentary. The story is going to be told in the videos. So I'm going to tell you ahead of time what you're going to see. You're going to see a news clip about the Stacey Abrams story and her receiving $2 billion. You're going to see the EPA head. You're going to see him talking about the fact that one of the Biden appointees said this was like tossing gold bars off of the Titanic. They were trying to get this money out of the Biden administration's hands into the hands of all their people before Trump took over and he could stop it. You're going to see the guy actually say this, and this was previewed in the coming up at the beginning of this video. And you're also going to see that Stacey Abrams linked founded organization in Georgia was not only found liable for campaign finance violations, but they had the biggest fine. This is before Biden awarded this organization that's linked to her, before they awarded her organization $2 billion, her other organization had received the biggest fine for campaign finance violations in the history of the state of Georgia. So you're going to see this story told through a series of videos. Let's test your attention span. Can you sit through it all? If you make it to the end, I certainly do appreciate y'all. So I'm just going to go ahead and hop right into it. Again, I'm not going to do any more commentary. This is going to be a story told just through the video. Thank y'all for watching. Please do like, comment, and subscribe. And let's get right into it.
Now to that other big story we are following. It is the largest fine levied for violating campaign finance law here in Georgia. And tonight, the group that backed Stacey Abrams' bid for governor in 2018 is in hot water.
It comes after the state ethics campaign spent years looking into the organization for potential violations. 11 Alive's Joe Ripley was there when that fine came down. So, Joe, what message does this send?
Yeah, so Faith Jonathan, this fine targets the very group that Abrams founded back in 2013. And today, the State Ethics Commission's fine against the group sends a clear message. If you violate campaign finance law and break the law to influence an election here in Georgia, they're going to come after you, and you will face the consequences.
According to a consent order, the Georgia State Ethics Commission found the New Georgia Project violated campaign finance law tied to Democrat Stacey Abrams' run for governor in 2018 and the MARTA expansion referendum in Gwinnett County in 2019, both losing battles. In the consent order, the New Georgia Project admitted to the 16 violations, including a failure to properly register with the Ethics Commission and a failure to disclose more than $4 million in campaign contributions, plus more than $3 million in spending. In turn, the Ethics Commission fined the group $300,000, the largest campaign finance-related penalty in state history.
If an organization is electioneering in Georgia as an independent committee, they have to register with the commission, they have to disclose the money they raise and the source of that money, where they're bringing in their dollars from. They have to disclose how they're spending that, and they have to indicate in the disclosures what elections they are advocating the election for or against and name the candidate.
The Ethics Commission first looked into a complaint in 2019, but a series of legal battles from the New Georgia Project delayed a decision for years. Cody Hall, an advisor to Governor Brian Kemp, is now questioning what, if anything, Abrams knew and when.
Not only has the New Georgia Project
been levied the largest campaign finance fine in state history. They have also agreed with every single accusation made by the Ethics Commission in their investigation.
Legal counsel for the new Georgia project responded to the consent order in a statement saying they were disappointed in a court ruling that was overturned on procedural grounds. They add, quote, "We are glad to finally put this matter behind us so the new Georgia project can fully devote its time and attention to its efforts to civically engage and register Black, brown, and young voters in Georgia."
And today, when asked if the State Ethics Commission found reason to believe Stacey Abrams herself violated any laws, Executive Director David Amati said that was still under investigation.
EPA Administrator Lee Zeldin says he's on a mission to track down billions of dollars that were either misspent or parked in accounts meant to boost liberal activists. The latest focus is on a nonprofit with ties to former Georgia Democratic gubernatorial candidate Stacey Abrams. The Free Beacon says the EPA is looking to where some $2 billion ended up. The Beacon writing out in their story that they have been looking into whether or not this money through the Powered Forward communities received the Green Energy Grant, despite the fact that it was founded months earlier in late 2023 and never managed anywhere near the grant's dollar figure. Now, Abrams just this week was pretty vocal on X, saying she's no fan of these DOGE cuts. We'll look to see if this group responds to the accusation about the money being misspent.
Featuring a Biden EPA commercial at 20, talking about how they were pumping gold bars off the we're not going to take billions of your tax dollars out the door for inauguration day. The gold bars were tax dollars. And tossing them off the Titanic meant the Biden administration knew they were wasting. Following these revelations, during my meetings with members of Congress, I made a very important commitment to them and to the American people, which I reiterated at the time that if confirmed, I would immediately get a funding. Fortunately, my awesome team at EPA has found the gold bars. Shockingly, roughly $20 billion of your tax dollars were parked at an outside financial institution by the Biden EPA. This scheme was the first of its kind in EPA history, and it was purposely designed to obligate all of the money in a rush job with reduced oversight. Even further, this pot of $20 billion was awarded to just 8 entities that were then responsible for doling out your money to NGOs and others at their discretion with far less transparency. Just under $7 billion was sent to one entity called the Climate United Fund. I'm sure you and I now have some of the same questions. How do these organizations decide how to allocate funding? How much money have they given out so far into Europe? Are there any former Biden EPA staffers who are now working at these entities? Let me make one thing abundantly clear. At this point, there is zero reason to suspect any wrongdoing by the bank. Here's my position as EPA administrator. The financial agent agreement with the bank needs to be instantly terminated, and the bank must immediately return all of the gold bars that the Biden administration tossed off the Titanic. EPA needs to reassume responsibility for all of these funds. We will review every penny that has gone out the door. I'll be referring this matter to the Inspector General's office, and we'll work with the Justice Department as well. The days of irresponsibly shoveling boatloads of cash to far-left activist groups in the name of environmental justice and climate equity are over. The American public deserves a more transparent and accountable government than what transpired these past 4 years. We take our obligations under the law as seriously as we can. And directed my team to find more gold bars, and they found them.
Autopilot mode enabled.
As President Trump has vowed, we are going to usher in a new golden age of American success for the citizens of every race, religion, color, and creed.
Now it's just how to get the money out as fast as possible before they come in and like top it up. It truly feels like we're on the Titanic and we're throwing like gold bars off the top edge.
Who are the gold bars going to?
Nonprofits, states, tribes. We gave them the money because it was harder. If it was a government-run program, they could take the money away. If Trump won, and because it was a insurance policy against Trump winning. I do environmental, climate policy things.
Really?
Yeah.
It's amazing. That stuff is here?
I mean, because I do like federal government climate things. So I do, you know, the Inflation Reduction Act. Have you heard of it?
Yes.
Okay, Biden's climate law.
Yes.
Yeah. So I do IRA implementation. I work with like Biden appointees. The money that we've given out like tens of billions of dollars. Like for the EPA last year. Over last year we've given out like $60 billion.
$50 million?
Billion with a B.
$50 billion.
Yes. For climate things. So like to go work for one of these places, I think would be really cool.
What are the places that you've given them to?
It's only been a few weeks, so it's a little early. But like green banks, so they're like nonprofit institutions that are like making it more financially feasible to build renewables, to do like climate projects.
Do you know what eating cabbage can do to your heart? Cabbage is a cruciferous vegetable that resembles lettuce and can be red, purple, white, or green. But what many people don't know is that it can have a serious effect on the body's inflammatory response. Is it healthy? Here's what you need to know.
Goodbye blood pressure meds. I'm throwing them all away. Why? Because after hearing Dr. Livingood, I don't need them anymore.
I'm a doctor.
Appreciate it, bro.
And
I'm a doctor. I'm a doctor. No, I'm a doctor. What's for a Swami running governor of Ohio?
This is how the ship is on fire. Enemy severely
Good to be back. Home, actually. This is home.
Torpedoes, direct
Born and raised in our first home where we ever lived, probably a few miles from where we are right now. Butler County, the heart of America. And you know what? America is back and it feels fantastic. Oh, we're just getting started. We have a lot of work ahead, and this is just the beginning of that journey. Over the last 4 years, we went through a national identity crisis. Faith, patriotism, hard work, family, all but disappeared. Young people in this country were hungry to be part of something bigger than themselves. Yet so many couldn't even answer what it meant to be an American. Under Biden's presidency, less than 16% of Gen Z said they were proud to be an American, and we had a 25% recruitment deficit in the U.S. military. That is unacceptable to me. And that's why I spent most of last year working tirelessly to help send Donald Trump back to the White House, because it was a fork in the road. It was a fork in the road for the future of the country. And in November, we made the right decision by re-electing the greatest president of the 21st century by sending Donald Trump back. And now you can feel it. There's a fresh new enthusiasm, a new verve, a new energy in America. We can all see it. We can feel it, actually. I'm now more optimistic than I have ever been for the future of our country. We're on the cusp of a new golden age in America right now. A revival of conviction in what it means to be a citizen of this nation. What does it mean to be an American? It means we believe in merit and hard work. That you get ahead in this country, not on the color of your skin, but on the content of your character and your contributions. It means we believe in free speech and open debate. And that means you get to express your view, whatever that may be, as long as your neighbor gets to in return. And you know what? We can still get together at the dinner table at the end of it. That's what it means to be an American. It means we believe in the rule of law. And I say this as the proud son of legal immigrants to this country. That means your first act of entering this country cannot break the law. That too is what it means to be an American. It means the people who we elect to run the government should be the ones actually running the government rather than unelected bureaucrats in the deep state. That, too, is what we fought a revolution for in this country. It means that we, as Americans, that we are courageous, that we are brave, and when called upon, even heroic, to do what is right for our country in our hour of need. Those are the American ideals. That is the American spirit that won us the American Revolution, and that is the American spirit that Donald Trump is reviving as our 47th president. But this is not a one-man job. It doesn't work that way. If we're all going to be saved as a people, it is going to be because all of us here step up and save ourselves, and that starts with the states. Starts right here in Ohio. I know Donald Trump's going to be successful in the next 2 years, but that means a range of programs from education to healthcare are moving from Washington, D.C. back to the states and to the people where they belong. That is what true federalism is all about. President Trump is reviving our conviction in America. We require a leader here at home who will revive our conviction in Ohio. And that is why today I am honored to announce that I am running to be the next governor of a great state at the heart of the greatest nation known to mankind, the state where I was born and raised, the state where Apurva and I raise our 2 sons today, a state whose best days are still ahead. I am honored to announce my candidacy to serve as the next governor of the state of Ohio. I will lead Ohio to be the top state in the country to start and grow a new business. I will lead Ohio to be the top state in the country to raise a young family. I'll lead Ohio to be the top state in the country where our kids get a world-class education in math, reading, writing, critical thinking, and physical education. I will lead Ohio to be the top state in the country where we give our kids the toolkit to think of themselves not as victims, but as victors in a competitive global economy. We will lead Ohio to be the top state in the country where we embrace capitalism and meritocracy instead of apologizing for it. We will lead Ohio to be the top state in the country that takes a hatchet to red tape, overregulation, and bureaucracy. We will lead Ohio to be the top state in the country where we lead the way in the sectors of the future, from semiconductors to aerospace. Look at where we are today. How about this company, guys? Love this, in the heart of Butler County. An aerospace company leading us to the future, all the way to AI and the other sectors of our future. I will lead Ohio to be the top state in the country where patriots across America actually flock to instead of Florida and Texas. I will lead Ohio to be the state of excellence in America. We love you. Love you back, brother. We got it. I just got a gift. We'll put it on. Thank you, brother. Good seeing you. You made that for me. I like it. You did. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. You think that sounds unrealistic? It's not, actually. It wasn't long ago that Ohio was that state. Today, young people on the internet, if they want to make fun of something for being a little old or a little bit off, it's sad. It annoys me. They say, only in Ohio. Well, you know what? It wasn't that long ago. At the turn of the last century, people weren't making fun of Ohio. They were aspiring to be Ohio. At the turn of the last century, we were the 3rd most populous state in the country. We were the wealthiest state in the Union, an economic powerhouse. We actually had fertile farmland, great natural resources underneath our ground. You'll notice we have some of those same things today. The leading edge of the Industrial Revolution. Even in the 1950s, 6 of the top 15 wealthiest cities in America were right here at home in Ohio. Toledo was the glass capital of the world. Akron was the rubber capital. Youngstown and Cleveland were jointly the steel capitals of the world. Dayton was the computing power capital of the entire Industrial Revolution. In my hometown of Cincinnati, close to where we are right now, from east side to west, was known as around the world as the Queen City, the consumer products capital of the world, Porkopolis, powering the food supply chain of our entire country. We were the pioneers. I-O, brother. I-O. Where's my east side of Cincinnati at? We got some east siders that came all the way. Thank you for driving all the way to be here with us too, guys. I appreciate that. We were the pioneers. It's who we were. We were the explorers, the unafraid. The people who no government or bureaucracy would dare to stop along the way. The state where the Wright brothers grew up. The state where Neil Armstrong and John Glenn gained the self-confidence to go to the outer frontiers of outer space. We were the state of excellence, and we can be the state of excellence again. We have the same gifts we did back then. The same fertile farmland, the same geographic location, at the heart of the greatest nation known to mankind, the same Erie Canal to New York City, the same Ohio River to the Mississippi, the same workers who embody the great culture and heritage on which this great nation was built. God has blessed our state with every gift we could possibly imagine. All we need to do is to step up and start believing in ourselves again. We're in the middle of a second industrial revolution right now. And I believe deep in my bones that Ohio can lead the way again. If Silicon Valley was at the leading edge of the American economy for the last 10 years, it will be the Ohio River Valley for the next 10 years. And I will lead this state to make it so. I'll be frank, it may not be the same sectors as last time around. It may not be rubber production next time. But it will be the sectors of the future, from semiconductor production to nuclear energy, from biotech to Bitcoin to our defense industrial base. The state where we use AI not to take jobs, but to make jobs through more workforce training and education. I will lead Ohio to that new height and new vision. This is our modern day Northwest ordinance. That's what this moment represents. I'll tell you, this is a state where we're a conservative state. Look at the people in this room. We share deeply conservative values that this country and this state were founded upon. We just need to finally be governed like one. That won't lose us elections. That will win us elections because it'll put more money in your pocket. It'll lift more people up from poverty. It'll revive civic pride and meaning and self-confidence in our young people. And more than anything, it will also make sure that patriots across this country, from New York to California, and yes, from Texas to Florida, move into Ohio to establish their roots here. And that includes so many of the kids who have left the state. We're going to repatriate them by their own choice back to Ohio, close to their parents and their grandparents, because this is the state where they realize their American dream without apologizing for it. We love you, man. Thank you. Thank you.
Dr. Levitt,
Please like and sub. Thank you. Sharp. Thank you, bro, for the sub. You guys have a nice evening. Bad. It's about 11 here. It's I started going to bed early. Bro said I got chemo Friday, hopefully, and gotta be rested for it. God bless. Y'all. Let's have a prayer here. God, thank you for another day. Thank you for letting us breathe, eat, no worries. Thank you for all you've done to me with my cancer. Now I hope you give me. Thank you, Jesus. Amen.